Right.
A lot of students from India come from centers or come from places that do not really have easy access
To centers nearby.
centers.
Yeah.
Exactly. Student who's probably sitting in a tier 3 city
Mm.
and has to travel to another city.
Yeah.
There's a cost of travel, there's a cost of accommodation.
Correct.
And the biggest hidden cost that comes with the other EPTs, the traditional EPTs, is the.
Hi Abhinav, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Dhairya.
Lovely. So for some context, Abhinav leads the India marketing efforts at Duolingo English Test. And I want to dive deep into the aspect of EPTs. So English language proficiency tests are obviously a very integral part of any student study abroad journey, Abhinav. Since you interact with a lot of students, I want to start with asking you that when it comes to EPTs, what are some common challenges you've seen a lot of students face?
The biggest challenge that we tend to see is with slots. Right.
Yeah.
And turnaround times. A lot of students are not really aware of the requirement of an EPT till very late in their journey
Yeah.
studying abroad.
Yeah.
And it totally depends upon the geography that a student comes from and the level of involvement that they have, right? So in that sense, because of the anywhere, anytime nature of the DET and its digital first approach, and the absolute non-requirement of any kind of slots, it's a no-brainer for those that are looking for an EPT that will be able to turn around a result for them in a 48-hour notice.
Right.
So that's the first challenge. The second challenge is essentially with respect to offline centers.
Right.
A lot of students from India come from centers or come from places that do not really have easy access to
centers nearby.
Centers,
Yeah.
exactly. So there are multiple hidden costs when it comes to an English language test. It's not just the cost of the test itself.
Yeah.
Let's just take the example of a student who's probably sitting in a tier 3 city and has to travel to another city.
Yeah.
There's a cost of travel, there's a cost of accommodation.
Correct.
And the biggest hidden cost that comes with the other EPTs, the traditional EPTs, is the practice costs.
The practice test.
Yeah. So essentially, it's like an exam. You
Right.
have to really go through months of preparation in order to be able to take that test. So these are the primary challenges that come with the territory. And what we hear students really speak in about the DET positively, or rather frame the DET positively, is with respect to the accessibility that it provides to them.
Got it. No, I think no doubt in the fact that, like you mentioned, when it comes to taking any kind of an examination or a test, firstly, the feeling that it feels like an examination or test just builds in this anxiety and stress, right? That
It's an exam.
Nobody does, exactly. So the moment I know that I'm going to probably get like a score and have to prepare for it, it's just tension and stress, right? And if that can be taken away, I mean...
And that's the thing, right? We like to believe that we are a stress-free test.
Yeah.
Because we are reducing the burden from the student who's looking to go and study abroad. And this is where a lot of intangibles also come into play. For a majority of the Indian students, going abroad is a daunting prospect.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that sense, there are multiple things for them to be worried about. Not just the tangibles of arranging finances, getting your applications in place, arranging your papers so that you get the visa, but also multiple things that involve the cultural integration.
Right.
Rather that they focus on the important aspects of going and studying abroad, because we are looking to enable the Indian student to get access to more holistic education, greater opportunities, so that they can go and acquire those skills and come and build something for the country. So it's more about brain gain. Right, that we are enabling through the course of the DET.
The course. No, that's a very good perspective, and thanks for sharing that. I think with that, Abhinav, when you talk about the product and you talk about the test, I mean, anybody would question or argue that there are other tests that people can take, right? In terms of an English language proficiency test.
And people do.
And people do, right? And maybe people will continue to do so. But the fact being, what sets DET apart in the sense that it is actually able to cater to the challenges, especially for an Indian audience trying to study abroad. And what are you guys doing, especially on the technology front and the product front, when it comes to curating the test?
I think it's very important for people to understand that there is a difference between a test that is available online and being an online first test.
Yeah.
Right? We are the latter. And in that sense, our algorithm or our AI learning modules are such that they adapt to the proficiency level of the test taker. So no two tests are alike.
Correct.
And no two tests are going to respond the same way. right? If I am taking the test or you're taking the test will respond very differently depending upon our proficiency, and the granularity will also come in the form of our responses,
Right.
and measurement of how we are adding variety, right, in our responses. So, just to give you an example, the section where test taker is supposed to speak on an image that they see, variety matters.
Exactly.
You could be extremely articulate,
Yeah.
deliver a very precise point
Yeah.
in a very brief sentence, but that doesn't test your vocabulary,
It doesn't.
right?
Sure.
And it
Yeah.
also doesn't test your thinking,
Yeah.
your analytical skills. So that's how the test adapts, or the technology adapts to the proficiency level of the test taker and the input that the test taker is able to provide. And
Lovely.
which is where, as a consumer tech company, right, Duolingo, the parent organization, has been around for a really long time. It is the leading language learning app in the world.
For sure.
It is very well loved, not just because of Duo and
Yeah.
the mascots that we have, but also in terms of the experience.
Yeah.
And the entire philosophy of the organization is to keep the tech so innovative that it keeps reinventing the wheel for
Yeah.
every subsequent batch of test takers, so that they find joy in the experience.
Right.
And we've been running a practice test
Yeah.
activation today, and the one thing that's really come across is how people have really enjoyed the test.
Test.
Like,
Yeah.
we've been taking a
I
test.
saw so many students be so enthusiastic about taking the test,
Exactly.
right? And a lot of them couldn't even get a slot.
They were interested in the slots, and if you could see, this is not the best setting for
Setting
anybody
for
to
sure.
take a
For
test.
sure, it's not
They
the
were
best
so
environment
lost
either.
in the test.
Test. I
The
agree.
experience of taking the test.
Yeah.
That's essentially what we want everybody to walk away with.
Right.
It's fun.
It's
It's
fun.
joyful.
Right. I think the gamification angle that you've been able to bring to the test, just like Duolingo app did it for language
Exactly.
learning, to being tech first, right? And like you said, no two test takers will have the same test experience, no two test takers will have the same set of questions, but they'll essentially have the same types or the categories of questions which have to be asked, because that's how there's a test format, right?
Yes.
Etc. And one last thing I want to ask you, Abhinav, are there some things that you've very newly introduced to the product in order to cater to any concerns or issues that the students or the test takers were coming up with?
So the biggest product feature that we've introduced in the last few months has been the second camera.
Right.
Right. This has primarily been introduced to cut down on complaints related to invalidated tests.
Okay. And you would
you-
receive such complaints from a lot of students?
So I think what people tend to forget is that it's an online test, which also requires a set of rules.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is an invigilation aspect, there's a proctoring aspect
Yeah.
that is involved in the test.
Correct.
Because universities place great premium on the security of a test. So the second camera has been very useful in reducing the number of technical flags that we receive, where a test taker might just be looking at one side,
Yeah.
one corner of the screen,
Yeah.
or might be looking down while typing on their keyboard. So there was no way for a proctor to be absolutely certain as to why they were looking in a certain direction in terms of the heat map that they analyzed, right?
Correct.
Now the second camera can be used to map exactly where they're looking at,
And why? Yeah.
and it also helps us cut down on cheating
Yeah.
cases,
Correct.
right? Because it's very important for us to have a secure test that is trusted by universities, because if we're not trusted by universities, there's absolutely no reason for a student test taker to believe in us.
Yeah.
So I would say that 3 million plus test takers worldwide trust the DET, and we are only growing. The second cam is going to go a long way
Yeah.
in ensuring that we remain a secure and very reliable test.
I'm sure. Thank you so much, Abhinav. It's
Most
been a
welcome.
pleasure speaking to you.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.